Every empire makes the same mistake before it loses control, not because it's weak, but because it believes the system will always bend. America believes that right now, and that's why this time is worse than before. Imagine this, a superpower at the height of its influence. Markets still strong, military still dominant, currency still global. From the outside, everything looks stable. But beneath that stability, something familiar is happening. America is not collapsing, it's not retreating, it's not panicking, it's repeating a pattern. And history shows that this is exactly how major mistakes begin, not with failure, but with confidence. Every great power believes its situation is unique, that its strength today protects it from the errors of yesterday. But systems don't fail because leaders are weak. They fail because leaders assume past rules no longer apply. Over the last century, the United States has faced moments where pressure built slowly, not through war, but through structure. Debt expanded quietly, supply chains stretched, energy dependence shifted, public tolerance thinned. None of these looked dangerous on their own. Together, they formed something far more risky, a system that could function, but only as long as nothing went wrong. This is where America is again, not in crisis, in compression. The mistake being repeated isn't about ideology, it isn't about presidents, and it isn't about foreign enemies. It's about believing that power can manage pressure indefinitely. History disagrees. Empires rarely fall when they are challenged directly. They falter when they try to maintain control across too many variables at once. Economic stability, energy security, global credibility, domestic patience. When all four tighten together, choices disappear. And today, all four are tightening. Energy markets are volatile. Not scarce, but sensitive. Debt is manageable, but expensive. Military reach is unmatched, but stretched. Public trust exists, but conditional. This combination creates an illusion of control. The system still works, which makes leaders push it harder. That's the danger. In the past, America made a similar mistake by assuming that market dominance and military strength would absorb any shock. For a time, it did, until it didn't. Not because the United States lost a war, but because the cost of maintaining stability grew faster than the system could adapt. Today, the signals are quieter, but clearer. Energy is no longer just fuel. It's a pressure transmission system. Financial markets no longer react to events, they react to risk, and public patience no longer resets after crises. It accumulates. This is why repeating old strategies in a tighter world is more dangerous than before. The margin for error is smaller, the reaction speed is faster, and the consequences travel globally. America isn't repeating a mistake because it's careless. It's repeating it because the system still appears strong enough to handle it. That's always how it begins. Here's the mistake America is repeating, and why it doesn't look like a mistake at all. The belief that systems can be managed indefinitely through pressure without fundamentally changing how those systems are structured. This belief has worked before. When the U.S. faced challenges in the past, it applied pressure. Economic pressure, military pressure, financial pressure, diplomatic pressure. And most of the time, the world adjusted. Markets stabilized, allies aligned, adversaries adapted or retreated. So the logic became simple. If pressure worked before, it will work again. But the environment has changed. What made pressure effective in the past was slack. There was slack in energy markets, slack in public patience, slack in debt capacity, slack in global trust. Today, that slack is gone. The system still moves, but it's tight, and tight systems behave differently. In a loose system, mistakes are absorbed. In a tight system, mistakes travel. That's the core miscalculation. America still holds immense power, but power now operates inside a compressed global framework. Energy is no longer cheap and abundant. It's sensitive. Finance is no longer patient. It's reactive. Public opinion is no longer forgiving. It's cumulative. This changes how pressure works. Pressure no longer produces compliance. It produces volatility. And volatility doesn't stay where it starts. Consider energy. In earlier decades, oil shocks were episodic. Prices spiked, then normalized. Governments intervened, then recovered. Today, even the hint of disruption creates immediate price reactions, insurance repricing, shipping reroutes, inflation expectations. No confirmation needed. Markets move on probability. That means pressure applied anywhere now shows up everywhere. Food prices, fuel costs, interest rates, political approval. The illusion is that because America can still apply pressure, it can still control outcomes. But control has shifted. Outcomes are now co-produced by markets, algorithms, expectations, public sentiment, not just policy. This is why actions that once looked decisive now look destabilizing. Sanctions that once isolated now fragment. Military posturing that once deterred now escalates. Financial restrictions that once disciplined now boomerang. Not because the tools are weak, but because the environment is saturated. Another illusion is speed. America believes it can apply pressure, observe response, and adjust. But reaction time has collapsed. Markets respond in seconds. Narratives form in hours. Political consequences appear in weeks. Policy moves slower. This creates a dangerous lag. By the time a strategy is adjusted, its side effects are already embedded. That's why repeating old pressure tactics is riskier now than ever before. The system doesn't give second chances easily. This isn't about decline. It's about misalignment. Power built for a slower, looser world is being used in a faster, tighter one. And history shows that misalignment, not weakness, causes the biggest strategic errors. To understand why America's old playbook is failing, you have to understand what energy used to do for the global system. Energy once acted as a shock absorber. When pressure rose somewhere, a conflict, a sanction, a blockade, energy markets softened the impact. Spare capacity existed. Alternative suppliers could step in. Prices moved, but they didn't spiral. That buffer is gone. For most of the last century, oil markets had three stabilizers: excess production capacity, predictable shipping routes, long planning horizons. Today, all three are weakened. Production is tighter, routes are politicized, time horizons are short, which means energy no longer absorbs pressure. It amplifies it. This is where America's mistake becomes structural. Every modern pressure campaign eventually touches energy. Sanctions restrict flows. Conflicts threaten routes. Alliances reshape supply chains. And because oil sits at the base of everything, transport, food, manufacturing, military readiness, its volatility spreads faster than any policy can contain. This is why energy has become the most powerful transmission channel in geopolitics. Not because oil is scarce, but because oil is sensitive. A rumor near a choke point, a drone incident, a shipping insurance warning. That's enough. Markets don't wait to see if barrels stop flowing. They react to the possibility. And the moment prices move, pressure leaks outward. Fuel costs rise, food prices follow, inflation expectations harden, central banks tighten, public patience thins. This chain reaction doesn't care who started it. Energy turns local tension into global consequence. This is why pressure campaigns today feel different. In the past, sanctions hit specific countries. Now they hit price levels everywhere. In the past, conflicts were regional. Now they ripple through household budgets worldwide. Energy is transformed from a resource into a narrative amplifier. It tells people something is wrong, even if they don't know where. And when people feel instability before they understand it, trust erodes. This is where the mistake deepens. America still thinks in terms of targets. Pressure this government, isolate that regime, deter that behavior. But energy doesn't respect targets. It punishes systems. And systems include allies, neutral countries, and domestic populations. This creates a paradox. The more pressure is applied to enforce order, the more disorder is felt globally. That disorder then feeds back into politics. Governments face unrest. Elections become volatile. Coalitions weaken. Pressure creates instability. Instability weakens coordination. Weakened coordination reduces control. This loop didn't exist at this scale before. Energy made sure of that. Now layer in one more change. Energy is no longer just oil. Electric grids, gas networks, rare earths, shipping fuels, they're all interconnected, which means pressure doesn't just raise prices, it raises systemic risk. This is why strategic planners are increasingly cautious. They're not afraid of war. They're afraid of uncontrolled escalation through markets. Because once energy markets destabilized, pressure worked because the system underneath was stable. You could sanction one country without destabilizing 10 others. You could squeeze a regime without spiking global prices. That era is over, but the tools didn't change. So the same actions now produce different outcomes. This is the core mistake. America is repeating a strategy that was designed for a buffered world inside an unbuffered system. And systems without buffers don't bend. They oscillate. Here's how the loop works today. Pressure is applied. Sanctions, restrictions, signaling. Markets react immediately. Energy prices move. Shipping costs rise. Risk premiums expand. Allies feel the pain inflation increases. Political pressure grows. Public support weakens. Coordination erodes. Governments hesitate. Messaging fractures. Enforcement becomes uneven. Pressure loses precision. Targets adapt. Circumvention grows. New alliances form. Pressure increases again. Because results look incomplete. This creates escalation without clarity. No decisive victory, no clean rollback, just more friction. And friction accumulates. The system doesn't collapse, it hardens. Prices stay elevated. Uncertainty becomes normal. Emergency measures turn permanent. This is the real repetition. Not wars, not invasions, but permanent tension. The world learns to live in it. Markets price it in. Companies adapt to volatility. Governments manage crisis instead of solving it. And once instability becomes manageable, there's less incentive to end it. This is why flashpoints linger. Iran, Ukraine, Red Sea, Taiwan energy. Choke points. None are allowed to explode. None are allowed to resolve. they hover. Now look at what this does politically. Leaders stop promising growth. They promise stability. They stop talking about opportunity. They talk about resilience. That's not optimism. That's containment. And containment is expensive. It requires higher defense spending, tighter surveillance. Controlled narratives, reduced tolerance for dissent, all justified by external threat. This is how external pressure reshapes internal governance, not through conquest, through normalization of emergency. And here's the most dangerous part. The longer this continues, the harder it becomes to reverse. Because reversing instability feels risky. Peace shocks markets. De-escalation threatens leverage. Stability disrupts profit models built on volatility. So systems stall. They don't fail. They don't heal. They linger in a stressed equilibrium. This is why repeating the same strategy produces worse results each time. Not because the strategy is evil, but because the environment has changed. Pressure used to discipline. Now it destabilizes. Every pressure-based system has one hidden assumption, that pressure can always be redirected. When one front becomes risky, you shift to another. When one economy absorbs pain, you lean harder somewhere else. For decades, this worked. There was always another outlet, another buffer, another margin. That's no longer true. Today, the system is crowded. Every major region is already under strain. Europe is dealing with energy insecurity and political fatigue. The Middle East sits on permanent tension. Asia is locked into strategic rivalry. Global debt is at historic levels. Inflation sensitivity is extreme. There is no quiet zone left, which means something critical. Pressure can no longer be dispersed. It can only be concentrated. And concentrated pressure doesn't discipline systems. It breaks sequencing. Here's what that means. In the past, escalation followed steps, pressure reaction, negotiation, stabilization. Now the middle steps are collapsing. Pressure to reaction to spillover. No pause, no reset, no cooling off phase. This is why modern crises feel different. They don't climax, they compound. Each unresolved tension feeds the next. Energy pressure feeds inflation. Inflation feeds political anger. Political anger feeds polarization. Polarization reduces policy options. Reduced options increase reliance on pressure again. It's a closed loop. This is the real danger America and the global system is facing. Not a single catastrophic mistake, but pressure saturation. When everything is already tight, even correct decisions can trigger unintended consequences. That's why outcomes now feel disproportionate. A single sanction affects food prices. A single statement moves markets. A single incident reroutes global trade. The system has lost elasticity. And when systems lose elasticity, they don't respond smoothly. They snap. But snapping doesn't always look like collapse. More often, it looks like sudden policy reversals, panicked coordination, emergency interventions, reactive escalation. Not because leaders want chaos, but because they're out of room. This is the historical pattern. Empires don't fall when they lose wars. They falter when pressure management stops working, when every tool still exists, but none produce predictable results. That's the phase we're entering. And this is why the mistake is worse this time. America isn't repeating the past by being aggressive. It's repeating the past by assuming the system still absorbs pressure the way it used to. It doesn't. The buffers are gone. The margins are thin. The tolerance is low, which means the next shock, wherever it comes from, won't be evaluated on intent. It will be judged on impact. And impact travels faster than control. This doesn't guarantee collapse. It doesn't guarantee war. But it guarantees volatility. Longer, deeper, more frequent. The world isn't moving toward resolution. It's moving toward managed instability until something forces a reset. That reset might come from markets, populations, alliances, or internal fractures. History doesn't announce which. It only shows us one rule. Systems that rely on pressure eventually run out of places to push. And when they do, the pressure turns inward. That's when the real consequences begin. Subscribe